Vanity of vanities, the preacher says, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. He goes on, a generation goes, a generation comes, yet the earth stands firm forever. It reminds me of a comment that my brother made one time after coming back from Oxford, years after he had graduated there. It had cost his generation much academic sweat to get into that college, of course, and indeed it was the crown of glory to have their names written on the wall, painted in golden paint on the columns of the hall, assembly hall in school. And he had noticed that by now that was condemned to oblivion, the school no longer existing, etc., etc. And when he went back to his college, built of course under Elizabeth I, he noticed how life was going on quite happily without him, and as though he had never existed. And he thought to himself, thus passes the glory of the world. And indeed, that can be the case for a huge number of souls that pass through this world, striving and toiling, as the writer says, in vain, in pursuit of wind. Hence it is that every time one looks at a grave, one asks oneself, I wonder what this soul strove for. For in the last resort, the only name that matters is the one that gets there on the book of life. And it's no joke that one actually strives for all the success in the world, in professional skills, in the football field, in the exam hall, now in the limelight of the cybersphere, with many a follower, as it were, great friends or virtual, and yet to find that one is getting to the beyond and one does not hear one's name on the roll call, one is not in the book of life. And there, of course, it will dawn. I was just actually looking again today at the figure of the lost soul in Michelangelo's Last Judgment, and I noticed how something had escaped my notice all these years until this morning. It's this little detail, that the soul in question is just at the point of realizing what's happening and unhappening, because that soul at that point is actually in a state of change. He is still visibly human, but he's actually encircled, and I hadn't noticed this properly, by demons drawing him down against his will, and he's in free fall, and he's heading towards the other domain. And though he himself has the traits of a successful man, a good-looking figure, he has utter and complete despair. It's the moment of realization, the moment of untruth, as we would say in Ireland, the moment of copping on. And you can see in this inspired indeed portrait by Michelangelo, the traits of a person who just has no hope and is facing utter unsuccess. I messed up my only chance. And that person, though it may not be a person, represents all those persons who have been in chase of wind. And it's more courant than we think. We just look even in the sphere of sport, how one goal, one point is cosmically important. As in the academic career, how many protests happen during a post-mortem of an exam, and how they try to claim more marks that they wanted to score on when it comes to the appeal. Pursuit, relatively, of wind. At the end of the day, if we calmly pause at the moment of the examination of conscience, which actually the church traditionally invites us to do at the end of the day, we ought to look, as it were, at our copybook. It's in the Ignatian spirituality, a whole discipline. They divide it into two. And that comes through even in the monastic timetables to this day as the particular examination of conscience, which happens in accompaniment with the Angelus and midday prayer, a pause, and then the general examination, which is the one when one looks over the whole day. But the particular one in the old Ignatian spirituality was a particular one where they looked at specific issues and worked on them on a monthly basis from one day of recollection to the other, usually the first Friday of the month, which was a day of coming apart and of looking in and working on a specific issue from month to month and taking stock. But if that is not happening, then what is happening is that we're precisely pursuing all kinds of important things but neglecting our soul, which is the one that comes to the surface in the end when all these other things have lost importance and only the soul remains as it is, nuda, cruda. So as we come now to the altar, that's what we're up against, our reality before Him. And if we are too busy to do that, then the truth is that we're a bit too busy. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus,